What's going on, people? Welcome to Live Palace News, where we're going to be discussing all the latest rumors and reports from today's Palace side of things. As always, if you do enjoy the content, make sure to smash the like button and subscribe. On the agenda today, Roy Hodgson. Reports suggesting that Palace want Hodgson to stay on at the club. We'll be discussing that. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be manager basis. And also, we're going to be discussing a few other reports suggesting about Zaha's future at the club. It seems like his representatives are meeting with club over in France. So we're going to be talking about that. And also wrap it up with a bit of academy talk and through one of our academy players being linked with a move away from the club. As always, joined by T here. T, how you doing, man? I'll say it's a bit more of a relaxed day than yesterday, but there's still some big stories, and Roy Hodgson is one of them.
Yeah, some good things to talk about, man. Interested to look at the chat and see what the thoughts of some of the viewers are, and just go over some things with you.
Yeah. As always, send in your thoughts and your questions throughout the show in the comment section. If you're watching on replay, make sure to leave it in the comment section down below. Let's start off with the first bit of report, and that is on Roy Hodgson. And this is according to the Telegraph. Today, it got released that Crystal Palace would like Roy Hodgson to stay at the club and work with their next manager after guiding them to the brink of Premier League safety on his return to Selhurst Park. So it seems like Palace want Hodgson to stay, not as a manager, but it doesn't specify the role. So I guess it'll be like a consultant role to help the next manager. But before we talk about your thoughts on that, T, do you think something like that under Vieira would have come a long way? A manager just or someone with Premier League experience that could have, helped him, because we talked about the lack of experience in the coaching staff. Let's say if Roy Hodgson was to stay on when Vieira first joined us, do you think that would have helped him?
I mean, I think it definitely could have helped him. I mean, it seemed like Vieira was open to the expertise and assistance of others. I mean, based on what we're hearing about how Ocean Roberts had a lot of say when it comes to who played and when, it seems like he was very open to the thoughts and opinions of others. So I definitely think it could have helped him, because obviously what we're seeing with the adjustments that Roy has made with this team, it's paid very large dividends to this point. So that could have been a piece of advice or wisdom that could have been given to him by Roy had he come into being a part of the organization. So
yeah. So what do you make of this report, Hodgson to stay on? From look, there were people suggesting that already after like one or two games. The one thing that I was thinking about and a bit concerned about was whether he would actually want to stay on. Well, if
Right.
it's not a manager role,
Right.
if he does, then that's a different scenario. But it suggests that Palace at least want to stay on. Do you think that would be the right move, considering he's been at the club for a long time, before this 4 years, and now he's had this run as well. He knows the area well. He knows the club well. He's respected at the club. Do you think bringing in a younger manager, maybe we're learning from our mistakes from Patrick Vieira and Roy Hodgson, if he wanted to stay on, do you think that would be the right move?
To stay on as manager, or just to stay on with the club? Yeah, I think if he stays on with the club, I don't think it's a bad thing at all. I mean, just like what you just said. I mean, he's got history with the club. He's a South London guy. He has love for the club as a fan before he was even the manager here. He's got just a depth of knowledge and experience with professional football and Premier League football as well. That goes without saying. So I think having that type of knowledge base and foundation within the club will be important for anybody to have, any manager to have. But like you said, I think a lot of it lies with if Roy can see himself doing that, leaving management and going into that type of role, if it's something that he might fancy or not.
Yeah, Colin says here, if it's a manager outside the Premier League, then it would make sense to keep him Roy. And Red says depends on the manager. If it's Paddy, not sure. Do you think it's a case of depending on the next manager as well? If it's the likes of Graham Potter, for me, it wouldn't make much sense to keep Roy, because Graham Potter knows and has Premier League experience, even the likes of Brendan Rodgers.
But obviously he has issues with certain things. I mean, that's why he ended up losing the job at Chelsea. So he might be able to use the help just as much as anybody else.
Oh, come on, T. Come on. He done it at Brighton. I don't think he needs Roy Hodgson to help him. I don't think he needs Graham Potter doesn't need Roy Hodgson to help him. Come on. I don't think he does. Surely not.
I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that because he obviously needs some help. I mean, just because you did it at one place at Brighton doesn't mean it's going to be like that everywhere you go. Obvious and apparent. Maybe he had some things in Brighton or some people in place in Brighton that he didn't have at Chelsea. You know what I'm saying? So I think there's more to it than that. I think there's more to it.
But then what you expect? Okay, but what you expecting with this Roy role? Then let me ask you that: what would you expect him to do? Because for me, I feel like
that's up for interpretation.
I don't think Graham Potter. I just don't know what Roy's gonna do to help out Graham Potter like that. Maybe yes, we might need a few more staff to help behind the scenes. And I'm just saying, not let's move on from Potter. Let's say Brendan Rodgers, for argument's sake. Just basically what I'm saying is a manager that's already managed the Premier League. What can Roy do in his consultant role to help him out? Like I feel like these managers already have the Premier League experience. So I guess
that's the nice thing about it, though, D. I mean, I guess the term consultant is a very loaded role. You know what I mean? There's no defined, there's no finality about what his role is. So I guess the beauty of it is whatever manager is can kind of call their shot with helping him or putting him in a position, and the club involved too, putting him in a position to best serve whoever is in that role. You know what I'm saying? So I think the nice thing about having that type of position is the flexibility that comes with it. He doesn't have to necessarily provide one specific thing. You know what I mean? So I guess that's the nice thing is that there's a lot of flexibility with how he could serve and what he could do.
Yeah. Look, for me, I think it depends on. I just don't see the point of Roy staying on if we already have a Premier League manager just to help out. Because I don't feel like they'll need Roy's help. But if he's a manager that's coming from abroad, if he's the likes of Arne Slot, Adi Hutter that we've been linked with, then I think it's very sensible to keep on Roy just to help the manager out, just adjusting to the Premier League life. But for me, I just don't know what Roy would offer to help out the likes of Brendan Rodgers and Graham Potter. But let us know what you guys think in the comment section as well. With the Roy staying on as a consultant, I would assume it will be a consultant to help out the manager that Palace wants to keep him on. Do you think it depends on the manager, or do you want him to stay or want him to go regardless of the manager? Let us know what you guys think in the comment section. Let's read out some of the comments that's been already said. Jude says, remember what it was like with Roy at the end, talking about the last time he was manager. Jude saying Slot and Hodgson. Yeah, I think if it's Arne Slot and then Roy Hodgson helping out, then I think it makes a bit more sense than the likes of Hodgson helping out Graham Potter. But yeah, I'm not. I guess I'm a bit surprised by the report that Palace want to keep him on, but part of me is not that surprised as well because I feel like we've learned from our Vieira mistake, and that mistake was not having enough experience around him. That's around him that's already done a job in the Premier League. So for me, based on this report, I'm thinking that we might be going abroad. I don't know. Maybe I'm looking too much into it, but a younger manager from abroad that might need a bit of help because I just don't. For me, I just don't think you really need Hodgson for the likes of Potter and Rodgers to help him out. Robin says, think we need to keep pushing. Roy should go upstairs. That's the thing. People saying this before when Roy was at the club as well. Go upstairs to do what? So go upstairs to help out a manager that doesn't have Premier League experience. Then yes, I agree. That would be an important role. But going out and helping a manager that has Premier League experience, I don't know what he would offer. That's me anyways. Luke is saying, could it be younger manager too, FA Cup and Prem? We don't know yet. We don't know exactly who the manager will be. The next manager will be. That's why it makes it a bit more difficult. But for me, yeah, my stance is clear. If it's a manager from abroad that doesn't have Premier League experience, keep him on. But if it's a manager with Premier League experience, I don't know how much you could offer to help out that manager as well. And Colin says, if it's a top manager, you would expect them to be good enough and experienced enough to not need Roy. If it's someone like Carrick, etc., then it would make sense. Yeah, even if it's the likes of Carrick, then T, do you think that would make sense as well? Because that's a championship manager. He used to be a player, knows the Premier League well, had a successful career there, but doesn't have the managerial experience at the top division. Do you think then it would make sense as well to keep on Hodgson?
Absolutely. I mean, I guess a lot of it really just depends on the views of whoever the manager is too. You know what I mean? Because there are a lot of times in sports where you'll see managers or coaches take jobs and he will fill his coaching staff with former head coaches just because of the amount of experience that you have within your coaching staff. So
Look
that
at
when
Ten Hag.
you,
He's got
yeah,
he got Steve McLaren
so
as part of his coaching staff. Yeah.
so when you think about that, a lot of times in this situation, like if Roy was to be a part of anybody's staff, he's going to be probably the most senior member of the team, probably have the most experience, period. But at the same time, it's like he's older. He may not want all the responsibilities that comes with being a head coach. So he might be cool with being an assistant. So then you have this knowledge bank that's a part of your staff that you can go to and refer to. So I mean, I think a lot of it just depends on what the manager prefers. But for a guy like Carrick, I think it could be essential for him to make that move up to the Premier League and have success.
Yeah, yeah. Look, we'll see what happens. I guess, if we do keep him on, there isn't much damage here, but I would like to know what role he's going to play. And for me, it depends on the next manager, anyways. Even forget about the role; it depends
Yep,
on the next manager.
absolutely.
That's more than anything. Alex says I would like to see Ray stay. To be honest, I think I saw someone else
Everybody
say this on
wanted to say
Twitter
race
as
that.
well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Red says most managers come with a whole load of staff. Yeah, see, that's the thing. I don't think the report is suggesting that Roy is going to be like a coaching staff. But from what I got from the report from the Telegraph is that he's going to stay on, like it didn't say consultant, but I think it will be more of a consultant basis rather than on a coaching staff.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the new manager still will be able to bring in their staff, but then Roy could be, I guess, upstairs is a term. He could be upstairs, if they need help, Roy's there to help them out. Maybe it could be a part-time role as well. It doesn't have to be full-time. Maybe you can be like once or
Exactly.
twice a week, or give a phone call to help out Roy. So that's what I'm saying. There's lots of question marks involved. So I guess if this was to happen, we'll see more reports about it in a bit more detail. But for now, that's what it's saying. Palace want to keep him, but whether Hodgson does want to stay on at a different role, that's up to him. That's up to him, and maybe he doesn't even want to do it in the first place. Will the new manager, if not Roy, be allowed to bring in their own coaches and youth coaches? I look, as I said, I don't think it's to do with the coaching staff. I think Roy will move, up a level rather than be on the coaching staff. But yeah, let Roy rest, man. Time to move on, says Apple Pie. And it's time for us to move on to the next bit of news, and that is on Wilf. And the latest reports suggesting from Foot Mercato is that Zaha and his representatives have already met with counterparts at Marseille, with the French giants keen on the idea of a deal subject to whether they qualify for next year's Champions League. And there's a follow-up to that as well in the report. But let's start off with that, T. The last bit of that report about him, subject to whether they qualify for the Champions League. I think that's significant because I could see him playing at Marseille Champions League football. Maybe not the likes of Arsenal week in, week out, but Marseille Champions League football, I can see that happening.
Absolutely. I mean, I think the thing, there's some things that factor into the Marseille rumor that makes sense. Number one, Wilf is fluent in French, so there won't be a language barrier for him going into playing in that team. So that's definitely a positive for him. Number two, Marseille is a big historical club. Like people, you may not want to recognize it or you may not know it. Marseille is a huge, very recognizable club. You go and play in the Velodrome, that's huge. It's a big deal. And they've got fans that are just as loyal and probably even more crazier than some of ours. Let's be honest. They set fires in their stands. But and like you said, the fact that they have been for the past, I want to say 2 or 3 seasons, they've been right there in the talks of playing in Europe and been in playing in Europe, either in Europa or in the Champions League. And we all know that's really, in the end of the day, probably one of the things that is really paramount to Wilf if he decides to leave Palace is the opportunity to play European football. So I feel like of all the links that we've heard about the Saudi rumors and some of the other Premiership teams, it's like that one makes a lot of sense to me, I think. So
yeah, I think that one does as well, because with the Premier League teams, I'm looking at Arsenal, and that's the follow-up to this report as well. it also suggested that Arsenal are now considered increasingly likely to make a contract offer to Crystal Palace winger Wilfried Zaha. So Arsenal seem like they're upping their efforts as well. Look, with Arsenal, he has the opportunity to play Champions League football, and of course that's his boyhood club, and that's the team he supports. So you know he gets to play for the team that he supports. That's massive as well as Champions League football. But then again, with Arsenal, there's a big question mark. Even with the likes of, you know, we've talked about Wilf a lot in these shows. Even the likes of maybe Dortmund or Bayern Munich and the PSGs and all the clubs that he's been linked with, because they've got quality players, so he can easily just end up on the bench and not end up playing. But then when I look at Marseille and you're offering Champions League football with a club like Marseille, who's, as you said, a top club, but then again, they haven't got them elite players. Like Wilf would fit into that side. So I think it makes it interesting for our sake. Marseille better not qualify for the Champions League. Because if they do, then there's a serious worry there. And for the first time, I'm genuinely worried about this report because it does make sense. If it's a Champions League football at a club like Marseille, then why wouldn't you want to do that? But then again, we'll see what happens. Where are they in the league? So let me actually look at that. How are the standards in the league?
Good question.
Because the report did suggest that it depends on them qualifying for Champions League football. So Wilfried got that privilege to wait it out in the first place because we've of course offered him a contract. But I mean, it's looking likely. They are second in the league.
Second in the table.
31 games. But then again, they're only third place. Well, first and second qualify for Champions League, I believe. And then
first and second, third is Europa.
No, third I think is Champions League qualifiers.
So
not automatic qualifiers, and fourth is Europa League. So, I mean, Monaco's there behind them, Lens is there behind them. Yeah. So, I mean, if Monaco just gets a push on, they're only 3 points behind them, and then they end up in Europa League, then I guess that'll be good for our sake. But yeah.
But would Wilf take Europa League?
I don't. That's a very good question. Mike is saying they won't pay his wages. That's another good point.
I don't know if Marseille's got an issue paying wages, man. I don't know if they got that issue.
It's a decent point. I don't know. 200K though. I don't know if they got
not
that,
a small club.
Money
I don't know.
With French clubs, they're struggling with the finances being an issue.
Finances.
So I don't know if
that is true.
200K to Wilf. Yeah, maybe that could be part of that as well. The R's need to concentrate on not botting the league. Leave Elisa alone. We spoke about Elisa yesterday. And yeah, if you haven't already done so, make sure to go check that out because that was an interesting report. Don't want Hodgson next season, says Boy that. But yeah, look, Wilf, it seems like Marseille is in contact with him and his camp, and we'll see what happens. That's what Foot Mercato is suggesting. But Arsenal, of course, are still chasing him. And yeah, the saga won't end until probably won't end till June or whatever. I don't know what the hold up is. I don't know what exactly he's waiting on. There's various different reports, but yeah, let's see what happens with that. Let's move on to our final bit of news today, and that is on Junior Dixon, the Palace Academy striker. Birmingham City have seemed like they've offered him on trial, and he's featured for them for the under-21s last night in the meeting with Watford. And that is from Birmingham Live. T, interesting. Junior Dixon. It seems like we haven't offered him a new contract, academy prospect, and he's at Birmingham right now on trial. What do you make of that?
It sounds like a lot of it's just surrounded around the fact that his scholarship is about to run out with us, and he's obviously doesn't have anything in negotiations or it's not going well, so he's weighing his options and looking at other things. I mean, it makes sense that he's doing that, especially if the contract isn't really moving forward or on the table with us. So, and I was saying earlier, I wonder if it has anything to do with bringing in somebody like a Franco Ume, because Junior Dixon was playing a lot, I feel like, earlier in the year, and he was scoring goals, and then things kind of tapered off and wasn't really seeing him being involved. So, yeah,
it's weird. Why, if that's the case, then it's hard to put you on the spot here, but why wouldn't we offer him a new contract? Of course, you don't know. I don't know. No one knows unless if you're asking
maybe he wants some type of assurances, or maybe he wants some type of clear pathway to the first team.
Yeah, or is it wages? Is it other clubs?
Yeah.
But then again, I'm thinking like Birmingham City, like I doubt they're gonna offer him a lot of money in terms of contract, but maybe they might offer him a bit more. But yeah, it's interesting to see because, as you said, he was he was a player that was decent for the academy and one that before all these contract situations happened, it seemed like he could have potentially got his chance. But yeah, look, I'm pretty sure the club know what they're doing. So if it's a case of they feel like his ceiling might not be as high as we might have expected, then you win and you lose some. Not every player is going to make it to the first team. Not every player is going to stay on. The academy football is completely different to actual men's football. Boy that says if we're letting him go, then I trust the club. Luke is saying this could be the side he dreamed of for a possible FA Cup and Premier achievement for Palace. I don't know who Luke is talking about there. Maybe he's talking about Arnslow. I don't know. But yeah, Robin says we have a new wonder kid on his way. Who would you say is the wonder kid right now?
Franco Ume is probably the one. I mean, he's 18. He's very quickly bedded into that U18 group, scored goals, gotten his opportunity at the U21, scored a goal, and he's also been training with the first team already. So something is there. I mean, I don't ever think I saw or heard anything about Junior Dixon training with the first team. I don't know how much Ola Adebomi might have had a chance to train with the first team, but lo and behold, Franco Ume is. So, I mean, maybe there's something there. I don't know.
Yeah. If you're enjoying the show, make sure to leave a like. Let's get the likes up, people. It helps us out massively. It takes a second of your time. And also, if you have any questions, send them through. We're going to wrap up the show shortly because we've got a preview to record. It's going to be an exciting one. Once again, looking forward to the Everton game. There's going to be... I was thinking about this, but we'll talk about it off air. But it's like, do we talk about Wilf? I'm not too sure because we don't even know if he's fit yet. So yeah, it might still be exciting anyway to preview. There's a lot to talk about, especially with the goalkeeper situation and more. 4 wins in a row. Sounds crazy, but potentially on the line. Colin says Roy was very impressed with Ume in training, especially his header he put away. Yeah, he was.
He stopped training. He literally stopped the drill in training to literally big up the kid and talk about how great he was. Like, that's
it makes a massive difference from what he said about Brandon Pierrick. Let's just say that. Do you remember that when he was last at the club about a bottle of wine and all of that? So maybe Roy he's visionary. We just don't know yet. Raksaki, not Raksaki. Boy that says Raksaki on loan next season or first team. So yeah, what do you think about this, T? We're gonna wrap up the show in a few minutes time, but let's answer some of the questions. For me, first team, and the reason why I'm saying that is I feel like I said it before at the start of this season that he should be a first team player, not as a starter week in week out, but I feel like he could contribute being as a squad player. But for you, do you think he needs another loan maybe to the Championship?
Man, that's a tough one just because of the log jam that we kind of have on his preferred right side. I think it's a matter of, how do they envision the pecking order of players when you're talking about like him, IU, but even though luckily I think IU will be more certain to move up to the other side, but Elise, Bue, you know what I'm saying? Like, how do you envision that? Or do any of these guys possibly, are they able to transition to a different position? You know what I mean? He is left-footed. So I don't know, man. I definitely, I'd be open to a decision, and I really would take the preseason to really weigh that up.
Yeah, even that's the hard thing. That, like, why can't some of these players play on the left? You get right hand side, they're just stacked. You got IU, we got Elise, Bue. I guess Bue can play down the left hand side. Raksaki, and on the left we got Whip and Jeffrey Schlupp. It's just like the squad, the difference in depth in both sides. It's literally
shocking. It's shocking.
But I think it makes it more complicated now that IU has signed an extension. Am I right in saying that? Because
absolutely.
I want him to stay, but I want him to stay. I want Raksaki to stay on next season as first team. Part of me is just thinking, where's he going to play though? If Elise is staying as well, if Elise leaves, then the door's open there for Raksaki to step up. But if Elise stays, IU stays, I feel like he's good enough for first team. But then again, where would he fit in?
Yeah, I think that's the biggest dilemma. I mean, and then you weighing up things like, do you loan him or do you loan Bue again? Does Jordan Ayew make that transition over to the left? I mean, even in the
Oh
event
yeah,
that
he
we
played
keep,
well on the left. To
yeah,
be
I mean,
fair, he played well
even
on the left.
like, and my thing is, I would honestly transition him over to the left because he's proving that he's better over there. To have another senior player that can play there is important, I think, especially in the event that you know, if Wolf doesn't play or doesn't stay, should I say, at least you have
So many
somebody
ifs and
there.
buts. That's the thing.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. So it's a lot it's hard to make those calls right now because there's still a lot of things to be decided.
yeah, but Ay's been cooking down the left hand side, so maybe he could be that second option to Will. It depends on the next manager as well. There's so many ifs and buts. We're not going to go through all the ifs and buts as well. If Elise stays, if Will stays, if the next manager wants, like there is so many scenarios right now, and that's why this summer is going to be exciting. Well, fortunately or unfortunately, there's going to be a lot to talk about. So I doubt I'm going to have much break this summer. But look, that's it for today's Palace news. If you guys have enjoyed it, make sure to smash a like button and subscribe if you're new to not miss out on future Palace content. We'll be back tomorrow, maybe with Palace news, depending on what stories do come out. But if not, the preview should be out tomorrow, looking ahead to the Everton game. As always, thank you to T and every single one of you that's been supporting and watching. And until next time, up the Palace.
Up the Palace.